What if the country you call home, your school playground, your first job, your kids' accents, your entire adult life, suddenly insists you don't belong? No passport stamp can capture your memories, but one letter can take away your job, your freedom, even your name on a payroll. That's exactly what happened to Anthony Bryan, the man whose fight for dignity became the BBC film Sitting in Limbo. Tonight we're going deep, how an ordinary decorator, here since childhood, was labeled illegal, detained twice, nearly put on a plane, and how his story forced Britain to look in the mirror. He grew up British in every way that matters. He arrived from Jamaica as a child in the 1960s to join his mother in London, part of the Windrush generation, invited to rebuild post-war Britain. He learned times tables in British classrooms, kicked a ball in British parks, paid British taxes, and raised a British family. For half a century, he lived a normal, low-profile life: school, work, bills, birthdays, until the system he trusted turned around and asked for a kind of proof he never knew he'd need. This is UK Immigration Express, where we take complex policy and real human stories and make them clear. If you value factual, compassionate breakdowns, tap like, subscribe, and share so more people don't get trapped by the same mistakes. It started with a routine workplace check. A manager, complying with tougher right-to-work rules, asked for documents Anthony didn't have: a modern passport or biometric card proving his status. On paper, it sounded simple: bring proof. In real life, it was a maze. Children who arrived from Commonwealth countries decades earlier were often added to their parents' passports, traveled on paper slips, or never needed formal registration at all. For years, you didn't need an immigration document to register with a GP, sign a tenancy, or start a job. Overnight, that changed. The new rules turned employers, landlords, banks, even hospitals into gatekeepers. One missing document wasn't just a clerical issue, it could cost you a wage, a lease, a hospital appointment. Anthony was told to stop working until he proved his rights. Imagine that phone haul. You're not suspended for misconduct, you're suspended from your life. He did what any reasonable person would do: call the Home Office, ask what to provide: birth certificate, school records, national insurance contributions. The answer he heard again and again wasn't comfort. It was a bureaucratic shrug. The file didn't show what they needed. The records that once could have helped, like old landing cards that recorded Commonwealth citizens' first arrivals, had been destroyed years earlier. The state had erased its own memory, then demanded Anthony remember for both of them. Meanwhile, the consequences snowballed. Without proof, a bank could freeze your account, a landlord could fear a penalty, a hospital billing officer could query your treatment. Each door that closed made the next one harder to open. Friends might say, just get a lawyer. But tell me, how do you pay a lawyer when you can't legally work and your account is blocked? Then came the blow that takes this story from frustrating to frightening: detention. One moment you're reporting to an appointment as instructed, the next you're in an immigration removal center. Locked doors, fluorescent lights, your phone taken, your life shrunk to a numbered bed. Anthony was detained not once, but twice. The second time, removal directions were set: a seat, a flight, a country he hadn't called home since he was 8 years old. Pause and picture it. Your mom's grave is here, your partner is here, your kids and grandkids are here. Your accent, your jokes, your football team, your bills in the drawer here. But a file says your future is somewhere else because you can't produce a document you were never told to keep. The thing about detention is that time moves strangely. Days stretch, minutes crackle with dread. You cling to any lifeline: an MP's office that picks up, a journalist who listens, a lawyer who believes you. For Anthony, those lifelines finally reached the public. His story broke through the noise. People saw a neighbor, not a headline. The country linked a new phrase: Windrush scandal, and understood it wasn't a single error, it was a machinery of suspicion grinding down people who had built their lives here for decades. There was a last-minute intervention that stopped his removal. Pressure grew, apologies were made in Parliament, a Home Secretary resigned. A task force was created to help Commonwealth citizens confirm their rights. Anthony was eventually granted the status he should never have been made to prove from scratch, his right to be here recognized. But here's a hard truth the film Sitting in Limbo captures so well. A piece of plastic can restore your legal status. It can't refund years of humiliation, anxiety, lost income, and the sense that your country looked at you and said, "Prove it," or disappear. Let's step into the quiet moments the headlines missed. The night after detention when sleep won't come because the fluorescent hum still rings in your ears. The half-packed suitcase by the door. Not because you want to leave, but because someone else decided you will. The call to a grandchild you keep bright because you can't let them feel your fear. The small, stubborn acts of normality, tea in your favorite mug, a walk on your own street, suddenly feel like privileges that could be withdrawn. And here's where the story widens. Anthony's case wasn't an outlier, it was a diagnosis. The hostile environment policy didn't just look for overstayers, it turned everyday life into a checkpoint. Employers faced fines, so they erred on the side of no. Landlords feared penalties, so they erred on the side of out. NHS charging rules created uncertainty at the front desk. When a system incentivizes suspicion, ordinary people take on the role of border guards without the training, without the context, and with every reason to play it safe at someone else's expense. But there's another lesson here, and it's the one that transforms fear into action. Anthony's fight taught thousands how to fight smarter. Build a paper trail, school records, national insurance history, HMRC letters, old payslips, GP registration, tenancy agreements. Submit a subject access request to the Home Office to retrieve what's in your file. Ask former employers for HR records proving length of service. Track down passenger lists, ship or airline manifests if available through archives. And don't walk it alone. An experienced advisor or solicitor can turn scattered scraps into a coherent case. There's also something profoundly British about how this turned around. Once the public saw the human cost, grandparents mistreated, cancer patients billed, workers of 30, 40, 50 years told to go home, the national instinct for fairness kicked in. The pressure wasn't just legal, it was moral. In living rooms and radio phone-ins, people said, that could be my neighbor. That could be my mom's friend from church. Policy softened because hearts hardened against injustice. Still, justice is not automatic, it's administered. The Windrush task force was set up to issue documents and correct records. A compensation scheme followed to repay losses, wages, rent, even the psychic damage of being told you don't belong. But compensation can be slow and complicated, and no check pays back birthdays spent under strip lights or the way a man learns to pack his fear into a small, polite smile. Anthony Bryan's story lives on because it points in two directions at once. Backwards, it asks us to remember how we got here, decades of welcome followed by a decade of suspicion. Forwards, it demands we build a system that can tell the difference between a stranger and a neighbor who simply lacks a file. That means record-keeping that protects, not punishes. It means rules that are firm, but not cruel. It means a state that keeps its promises as carefully as it keeps its databases. If you're watching this and you or a family member arrived here as a child from a Commonwealth country, take this as your gentle alarm clock. Check your paperwork. If something's missing, don't wait for a crisis to force your hand. Contact your MP, speak to a regulated advisor, request your records, and assemble your history. If you're an employer or landlord, remember, behind every form is a human being who may have lived here longer than you. Curiosity and kindness are not legal duties, but they might prevent another Anthony. There's a scene in Sitting in Limbo that stays with me. It isn't the confrontation or the detention van, it's the kitchen table, the quiet endurance, the partner who keeps faith when the state does not. That's where the real strength is. Not in shouting, not in headlines, but in refusing to let a system redefine who you are. And in the end, Anthony Bryan's victory was not just a stamp in a passport, it was a restoration of narrative. He is not an overstayer, not a case, not even a victim. He is a man who helped paint the walls of this country, literally and figuratively, who raised a family here, who queued for the bus, argued about football, paid tax, and mowed the same patch of grass for years. The state can issue a card, only a community can issue belonging. If this story moved you, let it move you to do something small and real. Call someone who might need help with their paperwork. Share this video with a friend who arrived here before the rules were written down. Ask your representatives what they're doing to ensure the next generation of kids arriving with their moms won't one day find letters that unmake their lives. Anthony Bryan was nearly flown to a place that had become foreign to him. Because he spoke up and because strangers spoke up for him, he stayed in the only place that felt like home. That is the power of attention, the power of story, and the power of insisting that systems serve the people they're built for. If you've had an experience like Anthony's, or if you're navigating the Windrush documentation process now, add your voice in the comments. What worked, what didn't, and what you wish you'd known earlier. Your story might be the signpost someone else needs. Thank you for watching. Stay vigilant, stay compassionate, and stay informed with UK Immigration Express.